So welcome back. We are now moving into the meeting of Shining Waters Regional Council of the United Church of Canada. For anyone just joining us, and I have noticed 2 or 3 new people coming in from the waiting room, I am David Leighton Brown, the past president of Shining Waters, representing the president, Tina Conlon, who could not be with us this evening. On screen with me is Jody Maltby, regional staff lead, who is acting on behalf of Peter Hartmans, the executive minister for both Canadian Shield Regional Council and Shining Waters Regional Council. I remind you all to please turn off your video and microphone, and if you're on the phone, please mute yourself. And now, in the name of Jesus Christ, head of the church, and by the authority conferred on me by the 6th meeting of Shining Waters Regional Council, I hereby declare this 7th meeting of Shining Waters Regional Council to be in session for the work that may properly be brought before it for the glory of God. I acknowledge that Shining Waters Region is located on land that has been occupied by a variety of different Indigenous peoples throughout history, including the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, and the Métis. This land was also the subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement to peacefully share and care for the resources of the Great Lakes region. May we live in the spirit of that commitment in our activities this evening and into the future. Our region and this meeting is a safe space for all. We not only welcome, but we actively invite the expression of all points of view from all participants, regardless of background or identification. For it is only through hearing and seriously considering all voices that we together may arrive at truth. We have one agenda item for this meeting to consider Remit 1, establishing an autonomous national Indigenous organization. You have had the opportunity to review the materials provided by the General Council and to participate in the town hall conversation that occurred immediately before this meeting. There is one question to be voted on as follows. Does Shining Waters Regional Council agree to amend the basis of union to reflect, 1, that the United Church of Canada will be organized as follows? 1, a 3-council structure consisting of communities of faith, regional councils, and a denominational council, and an autonomous national Indigenous organization. And 2, that once the new autonomous national Indigenous organization is established within the United Church of Canada, it will have its own mechanisms to make any future changes to its structure and processes, and therefore will not be subject to the remit process under section 7.4.1 of the basis of union. And 3, required for the establishment of the autonomous national Indigenous organization. We hope that most questions were raised during the town hall conversation and answered there. However, if you have questions or wish to speak to the motion, please raise your hand or type in the chat to Diane. There will be a 90-second time limit for each speaker. At my discretion, the time may be extended where the circumstances warrant it to allow for equitable participation. I see one hand raised. Rosemary McLeese, would you please turn on your camera and unmute yourself? Yes.
Okay. I'm Rosemary McLeese. I'm a lay rep for Timothy Eaton United Church. I just wondered if there's been any language that's been drawn up that would provide for the protection of the United Church. If the nature of the Indigenous Church were to change and not reflect the teachings of Jesus. And it's the same type of question. Does the United Church have any legal framework to disagree or not accept a change that was made by the Indigenous Church if it were to negatively affect the United Church of Canada and perhaps cause it to fail, whatever? Because I do feel like the power is all with the Indigenous Church, which is fine. But what do they have power over the United Church that might, in, like, let's say 100 years from now or 200 years from now? I understand that the group that they've been dealing with over the 30 years is very, it sounds like they're much like the United Church thoughts and dealings with within our churches, that we do sound, similar and have the teachings of Jesus. But what if things change 100 years from now, 200 years from now, and there's some other group that comes to power and has all these changes? Do we have any way of saying, no, we can't do that because it will actually cause us to have no structure, or whatever the case may be?
I am certainly not competent to answer that question beyond saying that it is very clear, not just in the remit, but in the discussion at General Council that approved the proposal leading to the remit, that there is neither desire nor intention nor expectation that the National Indigenous Organization will become a separate church apart from the United Church of Canada. 100% of the indication and expectation is it will remain a part of the United Church of Canada. I understand your question to be, will the National Indigenous Organization be able to make decisions for the United Church of Canada? And yes. No, General Council makes decisions for the United Church of Canada. That will not change as a result of this remit. Beyond that, I don't know if there is any member of staff or anyone else who could offer further answer to that question. I don't see anyone. I hope that's good enough. That's the best I can do.
I've got my hand up.
Okay, I'm not sure who that was. I see, however, a question from where are we? Robert Hilliard.
Thanks again, David. My question a little bit is this Indigenous Church going to be First Nations, Inuit, and Métis? And do they, within themselves, have an ability to form a structure that includes all of them? Because what I've learned is that there are different First Nations, and they are all very proud of being different First Nations groups. And First Nations and the Inuit and Métis are all quite different, but I'm assuming that there's been enough discussion that this Indigenous church structure would be inclusive, equally inclusive of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis.
It's a shame that Michael Blair has left, because he has attended meetings of the National Indigenous Council and could speak to the breadth of participation. But it is
I believe Michael is here, David, if we'd like him to.
Okay, if you are still here, Michael, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot, can you offer an answer to that question?
So just to say, I think the calls to the church says that the indigenous community, and they define it broadly, will kind of define what that looks like. So as I said earlier in the town hall, we need to be thinking about indigenous communities, because the current expression of the indigenous church covers a wide range of indigenous peoples from across the country. And so it is already a diverse community, and it will continue to be a diverse community. One of the things that it is committed to is working within the indigenous within the urban indigenous context, and it's made some specific decisions around including in the old structures of various expression of how the indigenous community related to the United Church. They were mostly, you had to be in community, i.e. on the reservation. Now they've made space for urban representation, and they're trying to make sure they include all the various expressions of indigenous First Nations people into the life of the church. If I could just also respond to the earlier question, the General Council Executive will be working on a request from the National Indigenous Church for representation or inclusion on the General Council Executive. So they do, to David's response, they do see the executive as the decision-making body for the church, and want to be actively engaged with that. So there's no desire to take over the church or to do something different with the church. They want to work within the system of the church, but with some clarity that they have the independence to make decisions.
Thank you very much, Michael. I will try not to keep throwing things to you, but I greatly appreciate your contribution there. Next,
I just told Kathleen to keep him spotlighted, just in case.
Thank you, John Michael Lee. We can see you, but I am not hearing you. I think you're muted still.
Perhaps you'll have to put his question in the
chat.
We
are.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, John, go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me from Fred's?
We can now.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank the United Church actually for this truth and reconciliation journey I personally have been on. Jody, it's wonderful to see you because you have been around since I did the walk in 2015. And so to see the changes that I've actually gone through with the new Shining Waters is I could see why we have these issues that we have today. I want to say that I'm a representative, a lay rep for Hope United Church, and I proudly walk here. And I want to be able to say to those that have questions about governance and stuff like that, all I have to do is I've been to many United churches that have nothing to do with reconciliation. And some churches like to use more voices. Some churches like to use Voices United. And no one has been criticized for wanting to use either one or just maintain one. I think having an Indigenous community and having an Indigenous leadership, and especially when it comes to the United Church, I applaud that. And to be able to let us do the two-row wampum, let us travel together, let us be in our own canoes, and we will go down that same river together. I think that's a wonderful idea. So I hope and pray that those that are stuck on this monetary stuff, or saying that we haven't stepped, we just learned about it. We have been learning about this for many, many, many years, and this goes far back. So that's all I had to say. I give the Indigenous people a chance. We actually are quite intelligent. We can pretty much, the United Church isn't all that, let us have our own way. That's all I wanted to say. I've seen a lot of people coming up and, worried about what the Indigenous people are going to do, what the Indigenous people are going to do to the church. I think it's just a matter of, let's go forward. Let's continue on, and let's go back to the way it was in the presbyteries. Shining Waters has got this new governance, which is why we had to choose, why we had to go to this remit. So I appreciate it. Sorry for taking so.
Thank you. Next, Liz McKenzie, would you turn on your camera and mute yourself?
Thank you, David. As I understand it, for the past 3 decades or so, the United Church of Canada has very clearly advocated to various levels of government for self-governance for Indigenous First Nations and Inuit peoples. And yet somehow we've never managed to walk the talk ourselves. And that's what I see this as doing. We are catching up, quite frankly, to what has happened across Canada with the federal government negotiating self-governance relationships with a variety of First Nations. And I have yet to see Canada being torn apart by that. I don't believe that our First Nation, the First Nations peoples that are United Church people, the Indigenous Church, I have perfect faith and trust that they will discern with Creator God what is best for them as far as the structure goes and how they are to be in the Creator's world and in the United Church as we paddle together on that in separate canoes, but on that same stream. So, so I am very much in favor of this remit. Thank you.
Thank you. Hewitt Holmes.
Thanks, David. Hewitt Holmes, Collier Street United Church. I want to make a comment. And of course, I did have a question that I put in the chat to Jody, but since Michael is here, maybe I can give him my question. The comment is that a couple years ago at Collier, we took the decision to allow items that are in our budget, fundraising items, for those items not to be coming back to the board every time we needed approval for them. So the idea was, once we get it into the budget as a fundraising item, then you don't have to come back to the board for another approval. In other words, the approval will come at the congregational meeting. I give you that example because that's how I see this proposal. I see this proposal as us saying to our siblings that we give you permission to continue that walk with us, and how you define that walk is totally dependent upon you. So this proposal in the remit form is our affirmation of the continued work that we are doing. So in a simplistic sense, it's just offering that idea around the governance and the practicality of this remit. That's the comment. The question is, for me as a racialized person, and is how does this remit continue that work of living into our intercultural vision of the United Church? Oh, by the way, didn't you get anything that I just said?
Yeah, and so I was just
good,
trying
good.
to figure
Thank
out
you.
who you wanted to answer the question. So I think it is certainly the church's work with indigenous communities is a part of the intercultural vision, and from day one, from 2006, and prior to 2006 at General Council 39, the emerging intercultural, the emerging indigenous ministry part of the General Council was actively involved in bringing the intercultural vision to the church in 2009. So it is a part of that broad work of our engagement in dealing with intercultural realities. From a contextual point of view, and given the history of our predecessors with respect to the indigenous peoples of this land, there is some particular work that the church has to do and has been doing. As I say, for over 30 years, the church has been engaged in building a relationship and in dealing with we can't solve the harm, but in addressing some of the harms we've created. I mean, I think it's interesting for us to be aware of that the gift of indigenous communities to us is to hold our feet to the fire, to walk the talk. It's been way over 30 years, and in some ways the apologies have been acknowledged but have not been accepted. And the indigenous communities have said to us, we want to make sure that you mean what you said when you offered the apology. And so we're continuing to live in the spirit of the apology. And I think in some ways our perspective around doing the work of reconciliation with the indigenous communities will have ripple effect on other marginalized groups within the context of the church.
Thank you very much, Michael. At this point, I'm aware of two more questions. First, Nancy Hopkinson, and then Lois Brown. Nancy, please unmute yourself and turn on your camera. Yes.
Hi, I think it's too early for us to vote. I know some of you have been working on this really hard for a long time, but there are those of us like me, the lay rep for Nobleton United, who really need to know more about this and to do some more studying and some more reflecting on this. So I think it's a little too early for us to vote. I noticed that the other region is delaying their vote and they aren't doing it immediately. And I think that's a better idea.
I would just point out that their regional council meeting is on a different schedule than ours. They have a fall regional council meeting where our regular business meeting is in the spring. That's why it's not that they're delaying the vote. They're simply holding the vote at their regional council meeting. For us to wait until next May or June would be waiting too long.
I think we could call an earlier meeting by Zoom. We don't have to wait for our normal May-June meeting. That's my thought.
Thank you. And Lois Brown, yes, you have turned your camera on. Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion. I move that we accept the motion to accept Remit 1.
You're leaping ahead. We do have a mover and a seconder all lined up, but I want to make sure that all questions and comments have been raised before. If there are no more, we will be proceeding immediately to a vote. But thank you. I do not see anyone. No one has put anything in chat, have they, Jody? I have not seen anything.
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Well, all right then. We will move to the vote. It is moved by Lois Brown, seconded by Patty Rogers, that Shining Waters Regional Council agrees to amend the basis of union to reflect, 1, that the United Church of Canada will be organized as follows. 1, a 3-council structure consisting of communities of faith, regional councils, and a denominational council, and 2, an autonomous national Indigenous organization. And 2, that once the new autonomous national Indigenous organization is established within the United Church of Canada, it will have its own mechanisms to make any future changes to its structure and processes, and therefore will not be subject to the remit process under section 7.4.1 of the Basis of Union. And 3, the changes required for the establishment of the autonomous national Indigenous organization. You have all heard the motion before you. Only those who are lay or ordered members of the Regional Council may vote. If you wish to vote yes, please use the raise hand feature to raise your hand now. And for participants on the phone, please press *9. If there are multiple users sharing a computer, please type your vote into the chat to Diane.
The yes votes are counted.
Thank you. And if you wish to vote no, please use the raise hand feature to raise your hand now. And those on the phone, please press *9. Those sharing a computer, please type your vote in the chat to Diane.
The no votes are counted.
Thank you. If you wish to abstain, please raise your hand now. And those on the phone, please use *9. And if sharing a computer, please type abstain in the chat to Diane.
The abstentions are counted.
Thank you.
The vote is 75 for, 3 against, 2 abstentions.
Thank you very much. The vote is carried. I would like to thank everyone for your participation in this significant decision in the life of the church. Before we adjourn, I want to take this opportunity while we're all together to let everyone know that our 2024 regional meeting will be held on June 7th and 8th, with our celebration of ministry service on Sunday, June 9th. The meeting and service will be held both online and in person at North Bramalea United Church, which is the same location as our previous meeting. At that meeting, we will be electing a president-elect. We will begin the recruitment process in November, but I wanted to invite everyone attending this meeting to begin discerning whether you feel called to this role or whether you know someone else that you could encourage to put their name forward. This is an important position in the Regional Council, and we encourage everyone to give this prayerful consideration. And now, having completed the business before us, I declare this meeting adjourned, and I ask Kim Udakai to offer a blessing, after which we will open up the chat, and you're welcome to turn on your video and microphone to say farewell to one another.
So thank you, my friends, for your deep listening and your spiritual discerning as we move towards reconciliation with Indigenous Church. We hope that you'll take your listening and your discerning back to your community of faith for your vote in your own context. So let us be blessed and pray together. Blessed Creator, in love, you show us how to honor differences and diversity as strengths for building your kingdom. In gratitude, our hearts soften to listen and understand, and meet one another with wonder and curiosity. In humility, we receive your way of truth and travel the path of right relationships with all your people in the footsteps of Jesus. And may your light and love shine in our words, thoughts, and actions. And may we go in peace, trusting in the promise of healing and reconciliation. and may it be so. Amen.